Candlelight dances on cold marble walls. Echoes drift through the palace of kings. Whispers weave secrets behind silk curtains. Scandal breathes where power meets desire. Every shadow hides a story untold. Through narrow halls, ambition quietly moves. Lips tremble with gossip and deceit. Love forbiddens, yet burning beneath control. The empire listens, hungry for sin. Night thickens with promise and betrayal. From the city's underworld, she rises. Born in dust, destined for a throne, her eyes mirror the fire of survival. Each step defies a world built by men. Her will becomes the weapon of ascent, not of birthright, but of entrance, not of nobility, but of cunning grace. She bends cruelty into quiet strength, turns shame into a crown of power, and fear into her fiercest ally. The marble glows with whispers of fate, golden mosaics watch in silent awe. Hagia Sophia gleams eternal, sacred, still. Her story begins beneath its light, a legend born from sin and survival. Byzantium stood between heaven and earth, where prayers rose with the scent of desire. Golden domes kissed clouds of incense smoke. Marble streets shimmered beneath 1,000 sins. Faith was spoken, but temptation was sung. In the grand halls, saints and sinners mingled, every gesture wrapped in ritual and pride. The holy and the corrupt shared a throne. Angels looked down upon dancers of silk. Each soul carried both halo and hunger. Temples glittered like jeweled promises of grace. Yet behind their doors, whispers burned hotter. A priest's sermon met a courtesan's gaze. The divine bowed quietly to human longing. Byzantium adored both God and pleasure. Here, every candle told a different story. Some for prayer, some for forbidden's passion. The city learned to worship both kinds of fire. The pure and the profane became one breath. Salvation and sin to faces of the same faith, and so the empire flourished in contradiction. Piety above, indulgence beneath the gold. Its beauty was holiness wearing perfume of sin. Its soul divided, yet perfectly alive. Byzantium where heaven learned to desire. Byzantium lived in the shadow of its own perfection. A city torn between prayer and passion. Every soul measured by sin, yet drawn to it. Purity was preached, but never fully lived. Temptation walked proudly through sacred doors. The people prayed with trembling lips and open eyes. They fasted by day and feasted by moonlight. Every sermon warned of eternal fire. Yet the flames they feared burned within their hearts. Faith and desire became inseparable twins. The streets glowed with gold and guilt alike. Monks whispered confessions they could not escape. Courtesans wore crosses of shining silver. Even the pure learned to flirt with sign. The holy learned to love their own weakness. Byzantium's heart beat to a double rhythm. One pulse for a heaven, one for the flesh. The emperor built churches as easily as he sinned. The priests blessed the same hands that betrayed. Holiness became theatre, temptation the unseen script. Every eye watched its neighbor's virtue decay. Every whisper judged another's fall from grace. Yet none could turn from what they condemned. In Byzantium, sin was a mirror for all, and purity was simply the art of hiding it. So the empire endured, radiant and restless. A garden of saints tended by sinners, a city where angels wore mortal disguise. Faith ruled its throne, but temptation ruled its heart. Byzantium forever bound by the beauty of contradiction. Behind the jeweled walls of Byzantium's palaces, gold whispered louder than any prayer. Velvet drapes concealed more than royal secrets. Every banquet sparkled with hidden sin. Every smile was bought, every favor sold. The empire's wealth gleamed like divine blessing. But beneath its shimmer, rot quietly spread. Servants moved through silence, guarding scandal's breath. The floors of marble carried the weight of deceit. Pleasure lived in rooms built for prayer. Emperors dined beneath mosaics of saints. Their crowns reflected both light and guilt. Wine flowed like confession, sweet and endless. Every cup filled with laughter and betrayal. The holy feasted beside the unholy. Silk, gold, and incense masked corruption scent. Even virtue wore the perfume of greed. Loyalty was measured in silver and lies. Power dressed itself in robes of devotion. Morality slept beneath silk sheets of excess. Behind every curtain, whispers traded names. Desire bought loyalty. Fear bought silence. The empire's glory was built on pretense, and beneath its beauty, decay had bloomed. Byzantium's heart pulsed with gilded corruption. Still, the people looked upon the gold and bowed. They mistook wealth for a heaven's approval. They called excess a sign of divine favor. They knelt before sin, disguised as splendor. And the empire continued holy in appearance, sinful in truth. The empire's pulpits thundered with holy command. Priests spoke of restraint, humility, and sacrifice. Their words painted virtue across trembling hearts. Salvation was promised to the obedient soul. But beyond the altar, truth whispered otherwise. When night fell, the sermons turned to silence. Candles dimmed, and piety removed its mask. In marble courtyards, shadows danced without shame. The elite feasted on the very sins they condemned. The city prayed by day and desired by night. Silken halls hid what faith could not forgive. Confessions were replaced with quiet indulgence. The same hands that blessed also beckoned. The same lips that preached whispered secret vows. The line between holiness and hunger disappeared. Power made morality a convenient disguise. The wealthy sinned in the name of privilege. Gold bought absolution faster than repentance. Priests closed their eyes in exchange for gifts. Faith was currency in the empire of indulgence. In Byzantium, restraint was only a story, a tale told to keep the masses pure. The rulers wrote their own commandments in lust. Behind the cross, they built temples of pleasure. Behind devotion, they worshipped themselves. And still, the city called itself divine. It believed purity could live beside deceit. But every sermon echoed through halls of hypocrisy. Every prayer rose through air thick with desire. Byzantium's holiness was dressed in temptation's silk. From this shimmering world of contradictions, she emerged. A city divided by faith and desire awaited her. Where men ruled by sword, she ruled by silence. Where virtue failed, she learned to make sin obey. The empire was ready, though it did not yet know her name. Byzantium itself became her stage of ascension. Every scandal whispered, every rumor carried power. She listened, learned, and shaped her legend from whispers. To the world, she was fragile, beautiful, and still. But beneath her calm, an empire began to bend. Virtue became her shield before the watching eyes. Sin became her dagger in the unseen dark. She could kneel like a saint and strike like a serpent. Her grace disarmed, her cunning devoured. Every gaze she met became her loyal subject. The palace that corrupted men would crown her. Every deceit, once whispered, now built her throne. She learned to turn desire into devotion. Every act of sin became a step toward power. Every breath of faith, her cloak of disguise. The Empress to be was not born royal. She was forged from temptation's fire and survival's ice. In a world drowning in its own hypocrisy, she alone learned how to swim. Byzantium had built its perfect queen, for in a realm ruled by both cross and craving, only one who mastered both could reign. She rose from shadow, neither holy nor damned, but something greater, something feared. A woman shaped by sin, crowned by destiny. Before the crown, before the legend, there was hunger. In the shadows of Constantinople's grandeur, she was born. Not in marble halls, but among whispers and dust. The air was thick with laughter, wine, and sin. Her lullabies were the songs of the cities forgotten. She grew where virtue dared not wander, where courtesans painted beauty over despair, where jesters mocked the powerful in trembling tones. Her cradle stood beside the broken and the bold. Every night, she learned survival before sleep. The city's underbelly was her first teacher. It showed her the truth behind the empire's mask, that holiness was fragile and sin eternal, that men who preached purity often paid for pleasure, and that power always smiled before it struck. Among dancers and dreamers, she found her voice. Soft at first, but sharp as she grew, every performance was a prayer in disguise. Every gaze she caught, a glimpse of control. Even in rags, she carried the poise of destiny. She was born where judgment and desire met, where the pure pretended not to see. Yet she watched everything: the faces, the lies, the silence. Her childhood was carved from hunger and humiliation. But from that pain, a queen was quietly forming. The circus was Byzantium's beating, dangerous heart. There, truth and illusion danced hand in hand. Silk shimmered, drums thundered, and crowds roared. Faithful men watched what they pretended to condemn. Pleasure performed beneath the gaze of the pious. Among them moved a child barefoot, silent, unseen. She watched desire dressed in costumes of art. Dancers twirled like flames, defying the cross. Actors wept false tears for real applause. Every scene revealed what sermons hid. The arena was her first court of power. Here, words were weapons, and gestures ruled. The laughter of nobles echoed through her mind. She saw how adoration could be commanded, how hearts could kneel without the need of faith. The performers were her secret mentors. They taught her the language of deception. A smile could disarm, a glance could destroy. Every movement could bend a man's will. Every act could mask a deeper intent. Byzantium's circus was a mirror of its soul, sacred by day, scandalous by night. Beneath painted lights, hypocrisy danced freely. And in that chaos, she learned control. Not through power but through performance. The crowd never saw her, yet she saw them all. From their cheers, she learned the rhythm of influence. From their silence, the taste of authority. The circus gave her more than spectacle, it gave her strategy. And one day, she would perform for an empire. The city spoke of holiness, but breathed in sin. Every sermon thundered against temptation. Yet behind the altar, whispers told another truth. Those who condemned desire were its most devoted followers. Gold crosses shone upon trembling hands that sought forbiddance warmth. She watched them come, men draped in virtue, faces carved with piety. They preached purity by daylight, then vanished into night. In the same alleys where dancers waited, laughter replaced prayer. Perfume masked the scent of devotion gone astray. For Theodora, it was revelation, not divine, but human. The empire's saints were sinners with better costumes. Its judges wore robes to hide the stains beneath. And in that deceit, she saw the empire's true theatre. She learned that power thrives on duality. One face for the crowd, another for the mirror. Those who claim righteousness often fear their reflection most. The holy men who scorned her kind sought her kind in secret. Their shame became her insight, their hypocrisy her armor. By the flicker of lamps and trembling curtains, she studied the masks of power and purity. She realized, if men could bend morality to their desire, then so could she bend them to hers. Every false preacher became her silent teacher. Every contradiction, a scripture of survival. And when her time came to rise, she would speak their language better than they ever could, not to condemn but to command. The laughter faded, the lights went out. Silence filled the circus of sins. Theodora stood alone, no applause tonight. Her dreams turned cold beneath marble arches. She walked away, barefoot, through silent streets. Constantinople's glow vanished behind her shadow. Dust clung to her feet like memory. She carried only hunger, pain, and pride. Villages turned faces from her shame. Whispers followed where she wandered next. To them, she was a fallen ghost, unholy, unclean, unworthy of their mercy. She slept under arches broken by time, drank from rivers, prayed to indifferent stars. Nights were long, cruel, and wordless, but pain began shaping her purpose slowly. Each humiliation forged steel within her heart. Hunger stripped away her vanity and lies. Silence taught her the weight of truth, and suffering became her secret teacher. She watched peasants live with cracked hands. Their honesty burned brighter than courtly gold. She envied their peace, not their wealth. She learned empire's glory hid deep sorrow. Now her beauty was no longer armor. It was memory, a fading disguise. For the first time, she met herself, no jewels, no mask, no illusion left. Every mile walked hardened her resolve deeper. Every scar whispered, "You will rise again." She was not broken, only reborn quietly. The road through Anatolia remade her soul. One day, fate would summon her name, not as performer, but as Empress divine. Every insult carved wisdom into her soul. Every tear became armor against betrayal. Theodora learned the empire's cruelest truths early. Power was theater, survival was the script. She studied faces, voices, movements, intentions. Every smile hid envy, every kindness debt. Behind every curtain, someone plotted another fall. She learned to play before they struck. Humiliation no longer broke her, it trained her. Pain turned her silence into careful calculation. Her eyes began to read unseen motives. Her laughter disguised storms no man could tame. She became actress, saint, and serpent combined. Her grace deceived, her mind devoured weakness. Every room she entered bowed unconsciously first, not to her beauty, but her will. Each performance taught her how power breathes. Each defeat taught her where hearts bleed. Even emperors, she learned, crave illusion's touch. She became master of that invisible game. When she finally reached the palace gates, she was no longer the circus girl. She was the storm wrapped in silk's calm. Every humiliation had built her crown. Theodora no longer feared judgment or sin. She had learned the empire's truest secret. Virtue bends, but strategy always survives, and with that, her rise truly began. Fate moved quietly through Constantinople's marble streets. Among senators and saints, ambition whispered soft. Theodora walked unseen, wrapped in worn grace. He walked among nobles, born to command. Their worlds should never have touched, yet did. One from dust, the other from divine blood. But destiny favors those who defy its order. Their eyes met beneath the shadow of empire. He saw not a courtesan, but a storm. Her gaze held secrets power could never name. She spoke with the poise of fallen queens. And he, the prince of laws, listened breathless. Between them sparked something neither could contain. Not lust alone, but recognition, dangerous and pure. He saw in her what he lacked within, fire, hunger, and the courage to burn worlds. That moment changed more than two hearts. It altered the empire's pulse forever. For the woman scorned by all society had just caught the eye of Rome's future. Their union was a whisper against empire. Law forbade what hearts had already chosen. A noble and an outcast, unthinkable, impossible. Yet destiny cares little for mortal decrees. In candlelit chambers, their worlds collided fiercely. Every glance dared centuries of divine hierarchy. She was the scandal no priest could cleanse. He was the air no rule could restrain. The city murmured, "This cannot stand long." But their silence became rebellion's first language. Behind closed doors, power trembled in disguise. Two souls rewrote the script of empire. He risked his name, his crown, his order. She risked her life, her fragile redemption. Together they crossed lines carved by emperors. Their defiance breathed fire into ancient marble. It was not mere love. It was war, a war fought in whispers, glances, forbidden's touch. Each night they conquered fear's invisible throne. And Constantinople, unknowingly, watched history being born. He looked beyond the whispers and the past, beyond the names that chained her worth. In her eyes, he saw something eternal, not sin, but the spark of survival. Her words cut through courtly silence like flame. Each thought carried wisdom born from wounds. She spoke not to please, but to reveal. Her mind shimmered brighter than any jewel. Justinian, trained to measure men by power, found himself measured instead by her gaze. She saw the cracks behind his royal calm. The man beneath the empire's golden armor, he saw not a courtesan, but a mirror. Her fire reflected his hunger for greatness. Together, they were dangerous and divine, two forces too brilliant to be denied. In her laughter, he heard prophecy's voice. In her courage, he found his purpose again. Every word between them read through the heavens. Their fates, once separate, had now entwined forever. Whispers slithered through the palace like smoke. The empire's finest dined on rumor and envy. A prince with a courtesan, scandal incarnate. Priests trembled, nobles gasped, and walls listened closely. Behind silk curtains, secrets burned into legend. They met in silence, beneath aural-lit moons. Every touch risked ruin, every glance rebellion. Yet desire outshouted even the laws of heaven. The court called her serpent, temptress, witch, disgrace. But Theodora smiled. She'd worn worse names. For every insult carved her image deeper. Even hate could not erase her presence. Senators plotted, clergy whispered, spies took notes. But none could cage what love had forged. Together they stood, against gossip, against empire. Each secret night, their power quietly grew. The palace walls knew before the people did that scandal would soon become sovereign power. The courtesan and the Prince of Rome were rewriting destiny in the language of sin. What began in shadows deepened into fire. Desire softened, then hardened into destiny. Their hunger became a covenant of purpose. Two souls aligned beneath the empire's crown. He no longer saw her as escape. She no longer feared him as ruler. Together they dreamed of power made pure, a union born of love and intellect. Love became strategy, passion turned to plan. They studied the empire like a living map. Its weaknesses whispered to them in secret. Each kiss carried the weight of conquest. Whispers called her seductress, him bewitched fool. But both knew, empires are built on illusion. Their affection became their greatest deception yet. A performance the world mistook for sin. When they spoke, senators paused to listen. When she entered, silence filled the marble. Her presence alone bent pride into obedience. Their partnership blurred the line between love and law. Lust had lit the spark, love sustained it. Love had bloomed, ambition crowned it eternal. And from their union rose a new empire, one ruled not by blood, but by will. The empire's laws were carved in stone, written by men who feared desire's power. No noble could wed a fallen woman. Purity, they said, guarded the emperor's throne, but love never bowed to parchment or priest. It rose where defiance dared to breathe. In Theodora's name, scandal took new form. Whispers spread faster than incense through cathedrals. Courtesans were meant for pleasure, not crowns. Yet one dared to reach beyond her place. She, born from dust, sought heaven's golden gate. And he, bound by law, held it open. The court trembled beneath this forbidden stream. Every senator felt their order cracking slowly. Every priest saw prophecy hiding behind passion. The empire stood divided, heart against rule. In secret, they swore allegiance to each other. Not to the empire, but to fate itself. Their love was now a declaration of war. A challenge carved against centuries of law. He stood before Rome's ancient throne unflinching. His voice cut through centuries of sacred rule. Change the law, he said, or change the empire. The court gasped, blasphemy wrapped in devotion. Never before had love defied the empire's code. But Justinian was no man bound by fear. He rewrote law with ink still warm from passion. His decree shook marble halls and trembling priests. For one woman, he bent divine tradition. For one love, he risked heaven's own wrath. Whispers called it madness, others called it prophecy. Either way, history could no longer ignore them. The senators protested, but their voices faltered. The church condemned, yet faith itself stayed silent. Even the Empress mother wept in disbelief. But Justinian's heart had already become crown. Theodora watched from shadows, eyes unblinking, proud. She knew what this act truly meant. He had traded eternity for her mortal name. And together, they would redefine what power meant. Their love was no longer secret nor sin. It had become law and legend both. The bells of Hagia Sophia rang cold, not in blessing, but in quiet fury. Rome's priests called it sin wearing a crown. The church trembled before a courtesan's rise. In gold and silk, she stood unashamed. Where saints once walked, Theodora now ruled. Every step she took defied holy decree. Every glance reminded men how fragile faith was. The marriage split Constantinople's soul in two. One half worshipped, the other whispered blasphemy. To them, virtue had married temptation itself. To her, it was redemption carved in gold. Sermons thundered, "The empire shall decay." But their words could not unmake her crown. The people saw strength, not sin, in her reign. A queen born from ashes, now untouchable. The church wrote curses, but the empire watched. For even divine fury bends to power's will. Theodora had turned judgment into her throne, and with Justinian, reshaped the faith of empire. What was once forbidden now stood divine. The courtesan had rewritten heaven's design. Behind gold doors, fear dressed itself as faith. The palace air thickened with sacred suspicion. They called her sorceress, temptress, devil's bride. Power in a woman always smelled like witchcraft. Advisors murmured spells beneath their trembling breath. Priests claimed her beauty was dark enchantment. How else could sin command an emperor's will? How else could shame wear the crown of Rome? They whispered that she mixed charm with poison, that her eyes bewitched even angels in sleep. But Theodora smiled. She needed no magic. Her weapon was intellect, wrapped in silk's grace. Every accusation strengthened her legend's fire. Every rumor added steel to her poise. They sought to curse her, yet made her myth. The more they feared her, the stronger she grew. Behind those doors, she studied every enemy. Each insult became another blade in hand. Each whisper turned into a future command. Even hatred now served her hidden design. Let them fear, she thought. It's safer that way. For fear obeys faster than faith ever could. And so, the witch became the empire's mind. While the world mistook her silence for sin, from scandal and sin, they forged destiny, not born to rule, but born to rise. Their empire was not inherited, it was earned. Every decree bore the mark of defiance. Together, they reimagined power as partnership divine. Her wisdom matched his law, our fire his faith. Where he ruled the mind, she ruled the heart, to crowns beating with a single vision. Byzantium bent beneath their shared command. Marble trembled, mosaics glowed in silent witness. The courtesan and the prince of Rome, now emperor and empress of all creation. Birth meant nothing before Theodora's will. Bloodlines bowed to the strength of her mind. Even heaven seemed to pause and watch, for she ruled not by grace, but grit. They taught the world a dangerous truth, that power is not given, it is taken, and that empires, like hearts, obey the fearless. Together, they turned shame into a golden crown. Their love, once whispered, now echoed through eternity, a union not of lineage, but legend, once scorned by nobles, now crowned by fate. The courtesan became queen, the mockery myth. Her footsteps echoed through marble meant for kings. Silence followed where laughter once had lived. She stood beside Justinian, radiant yet composed. No longer performer, now partner in empire. The crown gleamed heavy with history and defiance. Its weight she carried without a tremor. Those who jeered now bowed in trembling awe. Her rise erased the lines men once drew. From dust to throne, a living miracle walked. Her name whispered like prophecy through every hole. The same tongue that cursed her now praised. The same eyes that judged now dared not meet. Her beauty no longer invitation, but command. Even marble seemed to breathe under her gaze. By his side, she ruled, not followed. Her presence changed the rhythm of the court. A woman born in shadow now ruled light. Theodora, crowned not by birth, but by destiny. Velvet drapes concealed iron beneath her smile. Every gesture measured, every glance deliberate command. Silk flowed, yet daggers hid within its folds. Theodora's word became law wrapped in perfume. Courtiers learned that charm was now courtesy. Those who faltered vanished behind marble doors. Whispers replaced swords, yet drew equal blood. Her throne was theatre, her eyes the script. Banquets glittered under chandeliers of fear. Gold reflected both beauty and control. Flattery became survival, silence became wisdom. One misstep, and laughter froze midair. She ruled through elegance sharper than steel. Her poise broke men more than armies could. The empire itself bent to her rhythm. Theodora danced, and Byzantium learned her tune. She had walked through whispers sharper than knives. Every insult taught her the art of survival. She learned how desire shapes the hearts of men, how guilt chains them more tightly than law. Pleasure, to her, was power disguised as sin. She saw truth behind the masks of virtue. Courtiers preached purity, yet drowned in indulgence. She understood their hunger and used it. While others ruled through fear, she ruled through knowledge. She read faces like poets read confessions. Her enemies revealed weakness in every denial. Her silence often thundered louder than speeches. From shame, she carved her own intelligence. From pleasure, she built a weapon of persuasion. Even priests who cursed her sought her counsel. For Theodora had mastered both flesh and soul. She became her own masterpiece of illusion. Every gesture, every glance, carefully designed. Before the court, she glowed with sanctity. In private, her fire could melt marble. She prayed with tears that seemed sincere, then commanded armies with the same calm voice. Her robes shimmered like halos in candlelight. Her silence could bless or destroy reputations. The church called her dangerous, almost divine. Commoners whispered she was half angel, half flame. She used devotion like perfume, soft, intoxicating. Even her enemies admired the contradiction she carried. To the world, she was both sin and salvation. Her image was armor, her myth a crown. She never begged for purity. She redefined it. In Byzantium's mirror, she became its reflection. Every step she took echoed through marble halls. Once mocked, now all bowed beneath her gaze. The Empress who rose from shame ruled fearlessly. She made courtiers tremble with just a glance. Hypocrisy knelt before the woman it condemned. Priests who cursed her once now blessed her throne. The noble women copied her walk and her jewels. Her past was no longer sin, it was legend. She turned scandal into strategy, insult into rule. Her power was born of humiliation mastered. Every whisper against her became her weapon. Even her silence held the weight of judgment. Byzantium, drunk on its own virtue, had fallen silent. The courtesan had become its conscience and crown. No sermon, no emperor, no law could undo her reign. She had conquered not just empire, but hypocrisy itself. Flames devoured Constantinople. Screams drowned the hymns. Marble cracked under the fury of revolt. The empire trembled, its golden heart collapsing. Justinian's courage withered behind palace walls, but she, Theodora, stood still amid chaos. Her eyes burned brighter than the city's fire. She watched mobs demand blood, crown, and vengeance. The empire's fate balanced on her silence. Guards whispered escape, priests begged for retreat. But she saw fear's death in disguise. If the throne was lost, so was destiny. The Empress refused to kneel before fear. History would remember the riot's flame, yes, but even more, the woman who faced it. Amid ruin, her calm became command, and the burning city learned her true power. The court froze at her defiance. No man dared speak after those words. Theodora's voice cut through panic like steel. Better to die a ruler than live disgraced. Purple, color of emperors, of divine rule. She wore it not as pride, but prophecy. The palace guards wept, shamed by her resolve. Even Justinian found courage in her defiance. That sentence became an oath across centuries. Whispered in wars, revolts, and fading empires. She taught rulers that glory demands sacrifice. That courage, not birth, defiance who commands. The Empress chose death over retreat's disgrace. And by doing so, she birthed immortality. Her shroud became legend, her fear forgotten. In that moment, Byzantium found its heart again. The court expected chaos, but she spoke peace. Her words rebuilt what armies could not defend. No script, no herald, only conviction's fire. Her courage became the empire's final defense. Justinian's will returned through her fierce calm. Commanders rallied, soldiers reclaimed burning streets. The city that cursed her now praised her name. Fear turned to faith under her voice's echo. In that hall, Theodora became more than queen. She became empire's breath, its pulse, its flame. From silk to steel, her rise was complete. And her legend began its eternal march. When peace returned, silence followed her footsteps. Power had made her sacred, and alone, allies smiled, but their eyes whispered distance. Even Justinian drifted behind walls of duty. She walked through palaces of gold, feeling cold. Every favor granted came with hidden debt. The throne she saved became her silent prison. Echoes of the riot still haunted her sleep. Guilt wrapped her like silk, soft, suffocating. For every victory, a shadow lingered behind. She ruled the empire, yet lost herself within. Theodora's crown gleamed, but her heart dimmed. Time, that quiet conqueror, came for her too. The Empress, once untouchable, began to weaken. Doctors whispered, servants prayed in candlelit rooms. But her spirit remained sharper than empire's sword. She no longer ruled through fear or fire. Now her voice guided from behind the veil. Justinian leaned on her, even in her frailty. The empire still bent to her unseen will. When her light finally dimmed, Byzantium mourned. Yet her legacy glowed in every golden dome. The woman who rose from shame ruled history. Even death bowed before Theodora's unbroken will. Centuries passed, yet her shadow never faded. Scholars argued not who she was, but how. Was she a savior or a seductress in silk? A queen of mercy or mistress of manipulation? Each age remade her in its own reflection. To the moral, she was sin made flesh. To the ambitious, she was genius without apology. To the oppressed, she was their whispered inspiration. History could never decide, sinner or saint. But perhaps she was both, and more, a mirror showing empire its truest face. In her contradictions, Byzantium saw its soul. When power fades, religion writes what remains. Theodora's fire was tamed into prayerful silence. The courtesan became a holy wife on parchment. Her hunger, her rage, erased by trembling quills. Mosaic softened her eyes, hiding the storm within. The church adorned her with virtue, not memory. Every desire that once shaped her became sin. Her voice was hushed beneath the hymns of men, yet even their edits couldn't cage her truth. Beneath the gold leaf, her gaze still burns. A rebel disguised as divine, forever watching. Even sanctified, she defied their final script. While emperors fell, her laws endured. She gave voice to women once unseen, unheard. Banned the buying of souls in pleasure's market. Offered mercy where empire had given none. Shelters rose under her name, quiet sanctuaries. Children found safety. The forgotten found dignity. Her compassion became the empire's hidden conscience. Even her enemies lived under her reform's shadow. Time tried to forget her scandals and shame. But mercy endures longer than rumor's breath. Her true revolution wasn't lust, but empathy, and that history could never bury. In Ravenna, her face glows in eternal stillness. Gold tiles shimmer where candles meet centuries. Eyes that once saw sin now see forever. The Empress stands beside Christ, equal in light. Art captured what words could never tame. Each mosaic a prayer, each gaze a challenge. Time eroded empires, but not her reflection. Even silence bends to her immortal poise. Tourists whisper, unaware she still listens. The courtesan who conquered faith and fate alike. Glass and gold cannot contain her defiance. She remains untouchable, unrepentant, undying. Theodora's name still drifts through marble corridors. Not as scandal, but as symbol and scar. She proves sin could be weapon and redemption. That shame could crown a woman, not crush her. Empires collapse, fates change, names vanish in dust. Yet hers endures, a paradox carved in legend. Neither goddess nor demon, but something fiercely human. Her life a hymn to power born of pain. She walked through sin and rose sanctified. A woman the world tried to erase, remembered still. History calls her many things, but one truth remains. She did not inherit her empire, she created it. The camera glides through Hagia Sophia's vast silence. Light spills over golden mosaics, dust dancing in prayer. Her eyes, still watching, seem alive in the stone. Centuries fade, yet her gaze refuses to die. She turns scandal into strategy, pain into power. Every insult became armor, every wound a crown. Where others saw shame, she saw a weapon. Weakness became dominance, silence became command. Byzantium lived in the struggle of opposites. Virtue and vice, faith and desire, heaven and flesh. And she, Theodora, became both sinner and saint. Her shadow painted the empire in crimson grace. History calls her many names: Empress, courtesan, savior. But legend remembers what truth cannot erase. She taught the world that power is never pure, that even sin can sculpt the divine. The camera drifts closer to her immortal eyes. Whispers fade, but her story burns eternal. Final line, a voice through marble and time. She rose not in spite of her past, but because of it.